friends, welcome back to Mellin It Up with me. I'm Mel. Today we're going to be making some donuts, and what I was thinking is, because I love air frying everything, I'm going to try air frying some, and I'll deep fry a couple as well, and then we'll taste both of them and see which one tastes better, if air frying tastes just as good as deep frying. So it's basically an air fry test, which I've never done. I've only really made donuts a handful of times. So today we're going to be making creamy donuts, or cream donuts. So basically going to be long, cut them in half, fill them with some cream and some jam, strawberry jam. So that's what we're going to be doing today. So I have all the ingredients lined up in front of me, and I'll bring you a little bit closer and we'll see what we have. Okay, so here are our ingredients. We have a 1/4 cup of just regular granulated white sugar. We've taken a couple of teaspoons of this sugar and use it to bloom our yeast, because yeast eats the sugar and that's what helps it bloom. We have 2 eggs, 1 1/4 cup of almond milk. As I've discussed previously, I don't use regular milk, so we're using almond. And inside that we have 2 teaspoons of the sugar that we took from the 1/4 cup we had. We have 2 1/2 teaspoons of active dry yeast, which I keep in the freezer normally, as I've mentioned previously. And then we have 113 grams or 8 tablespoons of melted butter, and we've just popped that in the microwave and melted it, but we're letting it cool. And then we have 540 grams of baker's flour. So you can also use all-purpose flour. I just have baker's flour, so that's what I'm using. We also have a little bit of, well, we have a whole bottle of vanilla extract, which we'll be adding to the mixture to give it a little bit of extra flavor. Alright, so our yeast, as you can see, has bloomed and it's all bubbly. So when it's not bloomed, it'll just be kind of clumps of yeast sitting on top of the milk. You need to let that rise. So the milk was warmed, we've added the yeast and sugar into that. What we do now is grab our mixing bowl. We'll chuck in the yeast first, have our butter, sugar with the teaspoon of salt. We have our 2 eggs. And we're just going to dump a little bit. So you can put in about a teaspoon or so of vanilla extract. It's completely up to you how much you want to put in. You don't even need the vanilla, by the way. It's not crucial to the recipe or anything like that. I just like a little bit of extra flavor. A bit of a close-up here. It was my birthday the other day, and Matt bought me this new attachment for my KitchenAid, a scale sifter. So I'm just going to dump this on top here. And this is holding my flour, this top part here. And it's also a scale. Regardless though, this is the first time using this, and it's going to sift the flour into my mixture for me. So hopefully you can see that enough. So at the moment we've got all of our wet ingredients here, and we're just going to give it a quick mix up with the dough hook on, which is completely fine. So just a low little mix to combine it all together. Alright, so that's had a little mix in there now. I don't believe that part is absolutely crucial, just in case you're wondering. I think once everything's in there, you'll be fine. I'm going to put in about half of the flour. So it's going to be a low speed, half the flour. Obviously, if you don't have one of these, or you're not even using a stand mixer, just add half the flour, mix it in, and then keep adding flour until it's at a consistency you're looking for. So we're looking for a similar consistency to the rolls we did the other week, where it'll pull itself away from the bowl and it'll stick to itself. So it'll be a semi, I guess, wet, sticky dough, but you don't want it to be too dry, so that's what you're looking for. So let's open this puppy up. First time here, guys, so we're learning this one together. Okay, so we've got half our flour in now. We're just going to incorporate it so that it's all wet, and then turn it up to a medium speed. So that's all mixed in. We're going to add the rest of our flour. We've got all the flour in there now. What we're going to do is put that on a medium speed, and we're going to give it a good mix. Alright, so here we have our dough. It's all done. It's been mixing now for a few minutes, and I've taken it off. And you can see here that it's nice and smooth. It's not too sticky. If you feel it's too sticky during the mixing process, just add like a teaspoon or a tablespoon of flour at a time. Let that mix in and see if it continues to be too sticky. And then you want something like this where it doesn't want to stick to everything and it's coming cleanly off the spatula. So we're going to put that into a grease bowl, which I've used a spray oil for, and we're going to let that rise for a couple of hours depending on the temperature of your space. If you've got a heated room, it might only take 40 minutes. If you've got a very cold room, it could take 2 hours. Okay, so we're going to cover that up with some Glad wrap and we'll see you in a couple of hours. Here is our dough, fully risen. It's been rising for about an hour and a half now. It's not super warm, but it's not super cold in the kitchen, so it's probably standard temperature, and it did pretty well. It's doubled in size. So what we're going to do now is lay down some flour onto our bench so that it doesn't stick onto the surface. And we have a rolling pin, so we want to roll this out to around a half an inch thickness. I've got a rolling pin here with little guides on them so that it'll roll out to what I want. I'm using the biggest guide that it has just because it means that I'll get a more consistent, even rolling experience. So that's what I'm going to use. But you want around half an inch. This is just a little bit smaller than half an inch. So we're going to dump that onto our surface and we'll cover it with some flour so it doesn't stick onto the rolling pin and on the rolling pin as well. And we're just going to roll that. In addition to flouring the bench, we've also got a tray over here prepared with just a sprinkle of flour, as you can see, with some baking paper laid down on it. Hey guys, I just realized my camera had stopped recording for most of that whole section of video. For some reason it paused itself. I don't understand why. So I'm just going to quickly go over what we did. I rolled out my dough, which you would have seen, and then I cut my dough into strips. They will be my cream donuts because they need to be long. They'll rise. Hopefully you can see them well enough. They're the strips that I cut into long strips and then in half. They will get puffier, so don't think they will look like this when they're finished. We have some round donuts as well, and these ones are the ones that will definitely deep fry because they'll be easier in a smaller pot because I have a limited amount of oil right now. So that's pretty much that part done. You roll it out, you cut out some shapes. With any leftover dough, you can just pull it apart, make some balls. Just roll it in your hands and make some balls out of it. Once they're cooked, you can just dump them into some cinnamon and sugar, and they'll pretty much be like cinnamon donuts. Once they have risen, which will be in about an hour, we'll go and we'll cook them. So we'll see you then. You'll see that our donuts have now risen quite a lot. They're not just little thin strips anymore, and these have grown as well as our balls that grew a lot bigger than I expected them to. So now what we're going to do is pop the long ones into the air fryer. We're going to cook those in the air fryer while we do some deep frying of the round donuts, and we'll see how they turn out in comparison to each other. Okie dokie. So I'm using my Kogan air fryer because it has a non-stick bottom on the bottom of it, whereas my other one has a mesh basket, so they'll definitely get stuck to the mesh basket. So we're just going to grab a couple of these and pop them into the basket and then put them into the air fryer. I've done a couple of test batches with the fried donuts just to make sure the oil was at the right temperature. One thing I noticed was getting the donuts from there into here, they lost their shape. So I've just come up with a brilliant idea to cut my baking paper down to size so that I can pick it up as a donut, and I can just dump that in there, and then once it's in there I can just pull the paper out. Be very, very careful. we have our 2 piping bags. One has cream, one has jam. We don't need a lot of jam, so I've only got a tiny bit in there. We've got an air fryer donut that I've already taken a bite out of because I wanted to see what it looked like on the inside, and another one that I haven't taken a bite out of. So one thing I can tell you straight away is that when you air fry them, they definitely have a crispier exterior. They feel kind of like a mini breadstick. And if they have flour on them, flour just bakes onto the donut. I've gone and got a paper towel and tried to rub as much as I could off, but I feel like that's going to make it a little bit dry. We did most of them being deep fried, so either way they're probably going to mostly taste delicious if these are fail. So we're just going to cut these in half. We've let these cool down so the cream doesn't just melt as soon as it hits the interior of the donut. This big one over here we're going to do the same with. So this was one of the ones that I was going to air fry, but I decided to keep one of them because it was shorter. I knew it would definitely fit in the pot. The jam is just blocking the piping tip, so I'm not getting any out. Damn you, jam, why are you like this? One of them are air fried and one of them are deep fried. We want to know if it tastes like a donut like you'd buy from the shop, and which one is better with texture.
Okay. That seems more like one you get from a shop, and I like that one more.
Okay.
This one's kind of dry, but I can't tell if it's because of the size or anything.
One's the air fried one.
Right.
That one's deep fried.
I feel like that would have been my guess. Like I want more of this one. Not. I'll try this one again. Kind of more like bread.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well.
This one's more like a donut. I
feel like the flour kind of baked on the outside of it, and that's what kind of makes it more dry as well.
Okay.
Maybe. But overall, is it a good donut recipe?
Yeah, I think so. I like the texture. And it's not sweet enough.
Is it because it's not in sugar and stuff?
Maybe. Is that like the only place that donuts get their flavour from? Like icing and sugar and stuff on top of them? Yeah, but maybe I've never had a donut without sugar all over it. And maybe that's just what they taste like. Like even this one, even with the jam in it, it still kind of doesn't taste sweet like a donut. Okay,
so texture is good,
yeah,
but it's not sweet enough for you to be a shop donut.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to steal it though.
Alright.
And that one.
Alright, you know another one? Alright. So there we have it. You can definitely tell the difference between an air fried and a deep fried donut. Unfortunately, I think deep fried did come out winner here, which is super disappointing because I love my air fryer. I will still air fry everything else because everything else comes out great. And they weren't bad. So if you are looking for an alternative to deep frying and you have an air fryer and you want to make donuts, it's a great donut recipe. Matt thinks you should add sugar on the outside because it'll add sweetness. But otherwise, I think it's an awesome recipe, and either way you cook it is fine. You just get a breadier consistency when you're air frying it. And if you are going to do them, try not to get as much flour as I did on the outside, because I think that added to the dryness of them. So if I were to do them again, I'd probably just use baking paper in the shape of the donut, and I would put the baking paper into the air fryer with it, just so that it didn't need any extra flour once you'd got them onto the tray. But otherwise, it's a good recipe. Give it a shot because it's pretty tasty. And